and welcome back to the channel of nonsense and a review of the Hyundai i30N. It's been out for a few years. I drove it when it was first launched. I think the launch event was 2017 at Cadwell Park, which is one of the UK's most righty-offy racetracks. It was in the kind of death throes of my career when I was at Carwell that I did this, and I was blown away by the i30N. It's Hyundai's first attempt at a performance car with their new team under Albert Biermann, the ex-boss of BMW M division, and it was phenomenal on track. It was great on road. It was a hooligan. It popped and banged. It was one of the loudest exhaust-noted cars I've driven in a very long time. Now, obviously, it's getting on a bit. It's 3 years old. It's had a bit of an update. It's had a bit of a midlife refresh. So I'm going to take you along for a walk around and a review and a drive to see if it is still one of the best hot hatches you can buy. So let's get popping, yo, or something. Don't tell my mum I said that. Here it is then, the 2021, it's going to date this video, i30N. So nowadays this is a £33,745 car. This one's got manual gearbox. You can now get it with an 8-speed dual clutch. This one has two options, and there aren't really many options you can have on an i30N. In fact, this has both of them, one of which is paint. This is their iconic kind of bluish Parma violet colour that they put on the end cars, and this one's got some lightweight sport seats which cost £600. But the recipe's pretty simple really. 2-litre turbocharged engine of 280 horsepower now, up from the original 270, and 392 newton meters of torque through a manual gearbox which has got auto rev matching. It's still got mechanical limited slip diff which is electrically controlled, so you can faff about with that from the infotainment screen. That's pretty simple really. It's on adaptive dampers, so you can firm it up, soften it off, and that still looks pretty good, doesn't it? It was really seriously engineered, and you can kind of tell the extent they'd been to it because, you're not going to be able to see this probably, but there is a brace bar across the back there. I think that was an option on some markets, but the UK gets it as standard. You get a pretty decent sized boot. I can't remember the litres, I'll stick them up there. And that was it. It's basically a dead simple hot hatch type thing. At the back you got the two massive and real exhausts. You get my shadow, and that's kind of it. Lots of red, lots of blue, and you get 19-inch wheels. And you get proper tyres as well. You get Pirelli P0s, which kind of signifies how this car is meant to go. It's quite an understated thing. The only thing is, since this car has come out, it's gone up in price a fair bit. I seem to remember this was under 30 grand, and now it's 33.5. Everything's got more expensive, but this is still roughly the same price as a Civic Type R, which is more powerful, and I'll tell you now, is a bit more of a serious feeling thing. But serious isn't always better. Let's show you some practical things very quickly. It has some back seats. I fit in them, look. Yeah, I fit fine. That seat's in my driving position. Hopefully you can see that. My knees are fine. And I've got loads of headroom as well. It's a grown-up, it's kind of like a golf-sized car, the i30. And the i30N is obviously based on that. And yeah, let's go up front. Right, I'm going to be ultra lazy and sit in the back and tell you about up front so you get a better view. Basically, you get a lovely feeling steering wheel with these two Parma violet buttons there. One switch between drive modes and one just dumps you in the raciest mode, which is N mode, and you can customize that through the screen that you can see there. You get the spiderweb diagram where you can adjust the million-ty things such as the diff and the suspension, the steering, the gearbox. You've got auto rev matching, and you can turn it off really easily if you just want to heel and tow yourself by pressing the button that says rev. Gearbox itself, I'll talk about on the drive. It's pretty good, to be honest. It's not the last word. It's not a Civic Type R's gearbox in terms of snicketiness, but it's a pleasure to use. And the pedals, I don't know if you can see, are really well set up for heel and towing, even in the clunky motorbike boots. You've got USB, you've got wireless charging now as well, and the latest Hyundai infotainment system, which is good. The only slight niggle is that you do not get a full digital dashboard like in the new Kona N and even the i20N. So we are a bit behind here in the i30N, but it's still all right. Lots of grey plastic, it's reasonably squidgy, but why you really buy this car is because it's good to drive. Can it convince you away from a Civic Type R? Let's go and find out. I might see if we're allowed out on that go-kart track over there. let's go. Right, I'm going to go for a drive in the i30N. It's a simple case of foot on the clutch, hit the start button. It's got a keyless key in here somewhere. Manual handbrake, into gear, and off we go. And oh no, the road has immediately turned into a go-kart track. I wasn't actually going to bring this car on here, but when there's an empty go-kart track and you've got an i30N, what do? You put it in N mode and you go for a drive. Now, we'll take this out on the road in a bit and do some proper driving. But for now, let's just do some little laps of a go-kart circuit and see how it goes. Yeah, that feels very familiar. Pops and cracks from the exhaust. The rev matching, you might poo-poo rev matching, but it gives you brain space. I remember this at Cadwell Park. Not having to worry about heel and towing when you're driving quickly is a good thing. And obviously you can turn it off if you want to be a hero. That was completely sideways round there. This is quite leery. So if you trail brake into a corner, it will go fully sideways, even in ESC sport mode. So you need to kind of have your wits about you a bit. And I'm no helmsmith, but I can have fun in this. Tighter stuff, boring go-kart corners, curb up there. You can really feel the diff working and pulling you out of corners, which is always nice. Bit of brake, slide it around there. Up on three wheels a little bit. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. Now, if you're looking at a Civic Type R, a Civic Type R on track is all about grip and going fast, and it's very aggressive. The diff goes very tight and it just drags you out of every corner. But it doesn't really dance about. The FK2 did, but not the latest FK8 Civic. This is more fun. It's more entertaining. It's a bit more lively and a bit more sideways. But at the same time, if you want to drive it quickly, you can drive it neatly. Just be aware that if you switch stability off, you can make it dance about a bit, which is a good thing. And like all modern cars, the steering isn't exactly flooded with feel, but it does weight up kind of naturally, and you kind of know what it's doing. And you can caveman it around corners. The brakes, let's talk about them. They're really good. You can get the car wiggling about under heavy braking. Yeah, I think it's fair to say, in the world of modern hot hatches, Civic Type R is still, for me, my favourite, because it feels like a race car. You're sat low in it, and it feels like a touring car, and it drives like one. It's very serious, very grippy, but at the same time, enjoyable. This is kind of a middle ground. It feels a bit more road biased. It's a bit more compliant. It's a little bit softer, and it's good. It's good for that, and it still moves around and hoons, which I like. So yeah, the i30N on track at least, still very entertaining. Right, I'm going to do a few more fast laps, then take it out on the road where we can do real world consumer advice. I've got quite old fashioned shift lights in my display here telling me to change up a gear. Bit of handbrake, no one else is on the track, it's fine. Handbrake isn't as sharp as in something like a Focus ST. Ford knows how to do a good handbrake, they know we misuse them. Right, that was unsensible, wasn't it? I did promise you car nonsense, and nonsense is what you're gonna get. Let's head to the road then in the i30N, where I can talk about things that happen when you drive it. Now, out on the road in normal mode, driving like a good citizen of the United Kingdom, Great Britain and Northern Ireland, or whatever we're called these days, it's a perfectly decent car to drive. Apart from you need to die. Sorry, where was I? Yes, when you are driving this like a normal person in normal mode, it's comfortable. The dampers do this thing where you go from hard mode into the normal mode, and it is like the car relaxes a bit and flows with the bumps rather than jarring you over them. Manual gearbox is easy to use, your nan could drive it, the steering lightens up a bit, and life is good. Now, these lightweight sport seats are really good. They are supportive and noticeably more huggy than the regular i30N seats, but they're not uncomfortable at all, and they've got squidgy headrests and they have wiggle room for fat people, and it's just a good option to have. You're a bit more supported around the hips and around the thighs, so I would recommend them. They're 600 quid, and as I said, one of the only two options you can actually get on the i30N. I remember the standard seats being a bit too couch-like, so I would go for these. No compromises there, really. Yeah, comfortable, easy thing to drive normally. Visibility is good. Again, you've got this horrible Hyundai thick-rimmed rear-view mirror, which is a bit annoying. I think they could have premiumed that up a bit. And some of these plastics, as I've said, are a bit hard. But you're usually got your eyes down the road checking for the police and places to do sidewaysness. I would say this is definitely a more comfortable hot hatch on the road than a Honda Civic Type R, even though that is more comfortable than it's ever been with its new adaptive dampers. I would probably still have one of these. This is definitely more exciting than a Golf GTI, at least in Bogo form. So this is pretty much close to being the best front-wheel drive hot hatch. Basically, I think it's between this and the Civic Type R. I've got to stop talking about the Civic Type R, but it's a competitor, isn't it? I would pick this for the road, Civic Type R for the track. I've probably just contradicted what I said earlier, but anyway, let's do the ultimate test. Put it in N mode, firmest dampers, angriest badger of everything, and see how jiggly my moves become. So far, okay. I would call that a little bit nuggety if I worked on some kind of relevant media title. This is a good place to test traction away from the line. Bit of wheel spin, then once you're in second, it's fine. In the wet, it'd be a different kettle of fish, obviously. Literally, if it starts raining kettles and fish. I'm going down here, aren't I? Send it. Yeah, Civic Type R would have had me out of my seat over those bumps. This did not. You still get comically loud bangs from the exhaust occasionally. They're just not as frequent as before it was facelifted, and given the petrol particulate filter of doom that all cars have had to endure. So yeah, it's got a lot more character than the Honda that I keep talking about, and I really quite like that. It's got a bit of nonsense hooliganism about it, and you can tell that it's been engineered by people who like dicking about in cars. In terms of performance, the i30N is pretty strong. That 280 horsepower might not be cutting edge anymore, and to be honest, it never was when this came out with 270 horsepower. But it strikes a nice balance, and it's got a decent amount of torque, kind of almost 400 newton meters, and that is kind of where you live, really, in the meat of the rev range. The engine doesn't sound especially nice when you rev it out, going jiggly over a level crossing. But yes, you can certainly pick up speed quick enough, and it feels meaty and muscular. I just love the way you can feel the chassis moving about a bit. I feel like they've softened it off a bit since it came out. I might be entirely wrong, and they've stiffened it up. It's a cool thing. It's a cool thing, but yes, it is quick enough to be a hot hatch. Don't worry about the fact that on paper it's 20 horsepower down on all the competitors. The chassis makes up for it, and it's fast enough anyway. So yes, it is a good thing. I just wish that it had a digital dash, and I think the cabin in general could do with a bit of modernization, but I guess there'll be a new one out at some point soon. Right, that's more than enough waffle from me about the Hyundai i30N. Back to you, Tim, for an outro, maybe in a car park. So in conclusion, what do I think of the Hyundai i30N? Is it still relevant 3-4 years on? Yes, it's showing its age in several areas. The interior is a bit dated. The infotainment system has been updated, so that bit's okay. But the rest of it is a little bit drab, but the driving experience is still very good. I've put it ahead of the new Volkswagen Golf GTI. I've not driven the new Coupe Relais on yet, so I can't compare it to that, but I would have it over pretty much everything other than the Civic Type R. As I've said, this is a lot more playful than the Honda, and it's more entertaining. It's got a bit more kind of like twinkle in its eye, if I wanted to say something wanky, and I do. So there we go. It's got a bit more kind of like tongue-in-cheek behaviour, certainly from the way it skids around corners on track. Can't condone that on the road, but it is a barrel of laughs to drive, and it is still an impressive feat of engineering. It feels properly put together by people that know what they're doing to make driving fun. So there we go, bit of waffle. Sorry it's a bit brief, I've only had a couple of hours with the car, but it's just nice to get reacquainted with an old friend. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you've liked this video, please hit like. It really does help me out in ways that you just couldn't believe. Not erectile dysfunction. Please subscribe if you've liked this. There'll be more nonsense on the way very soon. And leave a comment calling me German World War II general. Goodbye.